Lord Frost went last night. Did you know that was going to happen? And do you understand his reasons for leaving?
I didn't know it was going to happen, and I do understand his reasons. And let me just say this first about Lord Frost. I've had the privilege of working with him now for a couple of years. I think he's an outstanding public servant, and I think that the way Brexit was done and how we achieved that and achieved those successes, he's been a central architect of that. So I wish him the best, but I do understand his reasons. He's a principled man. Principled people do resign from the government. I know all about that, and that's something that's a decision for him to take.
Is that it? How about pointing out that the damage caused to the UK economy by the
Great Deal
he championed will be double that of a deadly pandemic which has grounded flights, broken supply chains and caused whole industries to collapse overnight? Don't just take my word for it. Here's the chairman of the Office for Budget Responsibility, Richard Hughes.
Since the referendum, we've assumed in our forecast that leaving the European Union is going to reduce our long-run potential output by about 4%. And in our most recent forecast, as I mentioned, we think that the effect of the pandemic is going to reduce that potential output by a further 2%. And so far, the data that we've seen of the impact of Brexit, especially taking into account the fact that the new trading arrangements came in January, is broadly consistent with that assumption that we had, which is that it would reduce our long-run GDP by around 4%.
So still, after all, this Brexit is going to have a bigger impact than the pandemic on the long term?
Yeah, in the long term, it is the case that Brexit has a bigger impact than the pandemic over the long term.
And here's more from Paul Johnson, Director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies.
Voters may not get much feel-good factor. High inflation, rising taxes, poor growth, still undermined more by Brexit than by the pandemic, will see real living standards barely rising and for many falling over the next year.